to another episode of Kindling the Hearthfire. How is it?
Is this actually recording? Yes, it's actually recording. Okay, starting over again. Alright, welcome everyone to another episode of Kindling the Hearthfire. This episode is going to be concerning the spring equinox. It happened a few weeks ago, but we had a little trouble with the technical difficulties in getting this episode out. But here it is, the spring equinox episode for you today. I hope everyone had a great time this year. I know our grove had a fantastic ritual, and the weather was a real improvement over last year. All right, on to the rest of the podcast. Next up, we discuss what the Irish are doing during this time of year. Usually, I would talk a little bit about some traditions surrounding the spring equinox itself, but as that's what we talked about last year, and I don't really want to bore you with repeats, I would like to take this time to talk a little bit about some very odd traditions and beliefs surrounding this time of year, two of which in particular. The first tradition is concerning April Fool's Day, or April 1st, which is celebrated most places around the world. And the second one is just a very odd little quirk during this time of year. It's an interesting tidbit. The first is a common trick played upon the unwary on April Fool's Day, which is called Send the Fool Further. Someone would write a note and put it in an envelope and then hand it to another person and tell this person that it was a highly important letter that needed to be delivered to so-and-so quickly. When the person got to this other person, the so-and-so that this letter was addressed to, this person would read the note, which would say in it, send the fool further. And probably chuckling a bit as they're looking at the person who's being fooled into doing this wild goose chase of letter exchange, would then write a note, add it to the letter maybe, and then put it back in the envelope, and then write someone else's name on it and tell them to give it to this next person. If the joke continues, the fool will be sent all around town before they cotton on to the fact that they are being sent on a wild goose chase. This made me giggle a bit, imagining who I might send out and who might actually fall for it and how long it would last. Another interesting thing about this time of year was the idea that if Palm Sunday, the Sunday before Easter Sunday, fell upon the same day as, say, St. Patrick's Day, it was given to be an unusual omen. It was expected that something unusual would occur, but it was widely also believed that it would be a good unusual thing, rather than a bad one. Alright, now, next up we have a lovely recording of Drum, ADF's recently re-elected Archdruid. Congratulations, Drum, and everyone who participated in the latest elections. He is going to be talking about devotional practice, and this is a long talk, I actually thought that since it's such a long talk, we would separate it into two parts. The first part is more concerned with personal devotional practice, and the next part, which we will be playing on the Beltane episode, which comes out in a couple weeks, will be more about how to incorporate devotion to the realms themselves, which is a very interesting talk. It's a bit long, but I love listening to it, and I hope you will as well.
I do my morning devotionals at the start. It's my sacred space because I have a 100 kilometer, 60-mile drive. It takes me an hour and 15 minutes, and it's more than enough time to do that. I also get the additional bonus of seeing the sun come up on days when there is sunday. So it's an extra added bonus, devotional that I add to it. So I think it's important to set a place and to set a time. That doesn't have to be a rigid setting of time, so it has to be 7 o'clock every day, but it's when I get in my car. And for myself, I like to set the scene. So first thing I do in my devotional practices is I talk about I talk about the day, on this bright, beautiful day, on this quiet, cloudy day. I like to start small with devotionals because it's just actually a recognition and saying, hey, I'm here, I know that you're here, and here's what I think. So I like to always, and because I do devotionals in my car, it is ideal to make some kind of an offering when you do a devotional. Since we're offering-based religion, it's important to do an offering. However, if you're driving a car, you cannot light a candle, you cannot pour whiskey in the car, you can't do any of those kind of things. But I finish my devotionals by saying, I honor and I thank you, Nate. Because I think that by honoring and thanking them, that is in and of itself an offering, as well as part of the other things. So let me give you an example. The first thing I do in the morning is something I learned from a Hindu friend of mine, is when the Hindus, what they do, especially the Brahmins, my friend is a Brahmin, his wife is a Brahmin, they get up in the morning, they go to the bathroom, they cleanse themselves, and they go into prayer. So it's like remove, cleanse, and then you're ready. And so what I do is I get up in the morning, I let the dog out. The dog goes and cleanses. I wash my hands, and then I have a little altar set up for the household spirits. And I have a little cup of water, and I dip my fingers in it 3 times, and I have a stone. I use a thing called a Huasi stone, which is the Hittites, you had these things called Huasi stones, which were large stones that were temple analogs of these things called Huasi stones, these large stones that were temple analogs. They anointed it with milk, anointed it with oils, they treated it like a god, whatever the case may be. So in my practical practice, I have a stone, I have a cup of water. So I dip my fingers in it and I say, I welcome to you my lares, household spirits. I welcome you to another day of friendship and peace. Thank you for watching over my home, my wife, and my family. And so that's my devotion. Walk comes back inside, life goes on. That's the first thing I do in the morning. And because for me, the household spirits are real, they're palatable. 5 years ago, I may not have recognized that, but I do now, just from experiences I had, which I can go into some other time. But it is a way. I'm sorry.
Your position, that, that you're security and everything, you're like, my household spirit's real. I may not have thought that, but you're real. And for somebody like me who, 6 years ago, I wouldn't have thought to consider myself a pagan. There's any graduation of that. That's super important that our individual faiths are evolving living things.
Well, I appreciate that. I mean, I had heard about household spirits before, and I never put much, I not disbelieve it, but I had not experienced it myself. And then moving into an apartment that I lived in for a while. For those who heard the story, I apologize. But I moved into this apartment. I moved my first couple of boxes in, and I had my cell phone, the predecessor of that cell phone. So the apartment is totally empty. There's a living room, there's a cupboard, a closet, there's a kitchen, hallway, bathroom, 2 bedrooms. So I put boxes in the bathroom, because that's where they went. I put my phone on the counter in the bathroom. So I leave the apartment, I start to go back down the stairs, and I said, better get my phone, because it's part of my body. I go back up, there's nobody else in the apartment. Rhiannon's outside in the van. I go back into the apartment, the phone is gone from the bathroom. I'm not a woo-woo guy. This is a material universe. The laws of physics maintain. Could not find the damn phone. So I go out and I said, leave the phone in the car. Rhiannon, and she's like, not my car. We had 2 cars. I looked at my car and I was call. So I said, I'm going to go back into the apartment, and I said, ring me and keep ringing me until I answer. I had it on vibrate, as it usually is, as it is now. And so I go to the apartment, I hear, so I kind of follow it for a while. And going into the second bedroom, the door is slightly ajar, and the phone is sitting on top of the door. So added some more boxes, set up some bookshelves, and what I did is I set up a little place on top of that bookshelf to be the, like, space for the household spirits. And it evolved over time as I learned things, I talked to people. I had somebody give me a gift years before of a, for lack of better terms, a spirit house. It's a kind of a light metal thing from India. And I didn't know what to do with it. And I talked to a friend of mine who said, oh, well, in Thailand, they have spirit houses. They're made of wood, and when you build something, you displace those spirits and they need a place to live. So anyway, long story short, there definitely was a spirit, if not more, in this apartment. And over time, I began to appreciate its presence. My cat was definitely aware of its presence. And so I made offerings to it. And I found that on days, things would move around in the apartment, and until we established a relationship and established ongoing practice, there was kind of a restlessness there until we got into sync. And I felt not really a woo guy, honestly. And so I got to a point where I really felt secure in this apartment. And I felt that I was not to be harmed because there was this beneficial spirit in there. Rihanna definitely noticed it as well, and she's also a material world kind of person. So I established a practice. And what I do is I do the water thing. And I also have a little glass of whiskey. It's a little candle that I cleaned out after it was all done, and I put whiskey in it. And as an offering, it's in my mind the perfect offering, because the laws of the physical universe say there is liquid in this glass, along with the spirits. It'll evaporate. So it evaporates as the normal course of the universe insists. But it's also, for me, the consuming of those offerings. As they are evaporating, they're being consumed by the household spirits.
Did you say the name of your household spirits at this
I call them Lares, Lares. It's actually Roman. Yeah, it's Latin. So it's something that I did. When I moved from that apartment, I wanted to try to get the household spirits to come with me. So I'm like, how am I going to do this? I really didn't have a guidebook for it. But I had this Feng Shui mirror. It's this octagonal structure with a mirror in the middle. And so I went from everything was gone in the apartment except this mirror and a broom that I left behind. And I went through the whole house, cupboards, closets, and all that stuff, and saying, "You want to come with me? Come." And so I think that something did come along with me to the new place that I went to, the house. But I think that big spirit did not come along. I did not feel its presence once I left, and it's probably still there. And if it was as interactive as it was with me, I can only imagine what the next residents had to experience. But that was my, really first experience with a household spirit as the object of devotion. And I still use that same devotional practice, the one I described to you, today in my daily practices. So when I first started, it was, I welcome to my Lares. That's how I started. It was just that one line because I wanted to keep it simple. And then I thought, friendship and peace, because as things calmed down in the house, then there was friendship and peace. And so I'm going to mention that. And then I thought, now that I have a home, there is a hearth there, and I wanted to acknowledge that as well. So now it's welcome to my Lares, welcome you to another day of friendship and peace. Thank you for brought you over my home, my hearth, my family. So structure, location, and dwellers in that location. And I think that works pretty well. I live in the city. Live in the east side of Toledo, which it's a mixed neighborhood. There's good things and bad things that happen in the neighborhood, and you never know. Touch wood. So far, so good. But I do feel that the spirit's in place for her. And that's an example of developing a devotional practice with someone or something below. And so that's something that worked with me. And so I decided to do it in the morning just because I figured it was a really good time to do so. But I think that one one can do this with entities like lares, or with gods or goddesses that if they appeal to you. If you have I have set up, because I live in a pagan household, there are little altars and shrines everywhere throughout the house. Most of them are undisturbed by my 5 cats, which I'm thankful for, as long as they don't have like balls or anything on them, they can be distracting. But I found that what this allows is it allows people to, or allows me to go to these different locations for different things. And as I've set aside function for different locations. And so what at one point was one devotional has now become a number of devotionals throughout the household. But I think that the devotionals can extend beyond entities such as gods and goddesses. And I think that they can incorporate broader things, such as
All right, I hope you guys enjoyed that as much as I did. Now, next up, we have a simple recipe that I found while searching for something easy to bring next ritual. It's a nice, fresh pea salad, which I absolutely love peas. The mix takes almost no prep and no cooking, but tastes lovely and will fit right in with a picnic on a spring day, or if you want to put it in the fridge before you serve it. It actually can really, really good on a hot summer day as well. All right, so it's a lemon pea salad, and the ingredients that you're going to get for this are very simple. Just 1 cup of raw peas, or is the amount of, and then it calls for half of a lemon juiced, with salt and ground pepper to taste. And basically what you do is really, really simple. Put this all in a bowl and you mix it all up. And that's the salad. Bring it to any type of ritual potluck just as it is, covered in plastic wrap or some kind of wrap. And it tastes really, really, really fresh and really great salad and easy to make. All right, so next up we have our book review. And now I usually would be reviewing a nonfiction book with my usual criteria for a good book to keep on your shelf or put in the bin. But this time around, I want to recommend an old favorite fiction book of mine that has been on my shelf for many, many years. It's a retelling of my favorite Scandinavian myth, East of the Sun, West of the Moon, which I loved since childhood. And the book is called, well, there's 2 titles for it, depending on where you get the book. It's called Northchild by Edith Patow. It's also called East, and that's actually the title that I have on my own copy, which is East. And you can find it in most retailers, including Amazon, Barnes & Noble, and I actually got it used at a used bookstore up in San Jose. So take a look for it in those stores. It's a retelling of a favorite Scandinavian myth, and if you love myth but are also partial to coming-of-age stories with an interesting twist, I would definitely recommend picking this up for yourself or any young readers you may know, young teen readers probably. It takes a bare-bones story of myth. It's really great myth, but still a very bare-bones. The main character isn't named in the original, and they're very the titles for the names of the other characters are things like father, mother, sister, things of that nature. And it takes this bare bones, wonderful story and fleshes it out beautifully. I would always recommend it for anyone. Pick it up at your local retailers, and hope you enjoy reading. All right, next up we have the social calendar. And the 3 festivals that are coming up in the next coming months are, the first one, which is happening April 18th to the 21st, is the Trillium Spring Gathering, which is an ADF festival. And it will be happening in Cross Junction, Virginia in the United States. And their website is trilliumgatheringadf, all one word, .org. And the links will be in the show notes, so you don't have to type that in or figure out what I'm saying. So they'll be at the end of the episode in the show notes in case you want to have those links. Okay, so that's coming up really soon. Actually, no, it has ended. Shit, it ends tomorrow. Okay, so forget about that one. Okay, next festival that's coming up is going to be the Wellspring Gathering, which is another ADF festival, and it starts on Thursday, May 23rd and goes till Monday, May 27th, and it's going to be held at the Tradera Retreat Center in Madison, Ohio. And if you want more details about what's going on, what's happening, who's going to be there, and how to get tickets, and how to traveling down there, it's going to be they're at their website, which is at stonecreed.org/Wellspring. And in the show notes, there's going to be all the list of links that are all mentioned in this podcast, as per usual, in case you need the website again. And the last festival for this time around is going to be the Sirius Rising Festival, and this is a pan-pagan festival where ADF does have a presence, and it's going to be happening July 22nd to July 28th, and it's going to be at the Brushwood Folklore Center in Sherman, New York. And more details about this festival are at their website at brushwood.com/Sirius-Rising. Okay? And once again, all those links will be in the show notes. Alright, thank you guys for listening. Wrapping up, I would like to thank everyone who contributed to the podcast, either by listening with your submissions or on Patreon, our patrons. I think we've got 3 at this point. I would also like to thank Bonnie Landry for her wonderful voice that you heard in the intro to the show, singing Fire Burn Bright, a chant written and composed by our own Diane Bronowicz. All other music and images belong to their creators. Right now you can find our podcast on Stitcher, iTunes, Podbean, Google Play, and on Patreon. I would appreciate any and all reviews, especially on iTunes, because reviews there really help make it easier for people to find us. If you want to help support the podcast on Patreon, I have 2 levels or tiers for patronage, each with their own rewards and privileges. Go on to Patreon and check them out and help support the podcast. All websites mentioned will be listed in links in the show notes as per usual. Thank you for listening, contributing, and supporting. May you and yours always pray with a good fire.